Hey everyone, Chris Sawyer here. The Varietal Show is back. We have patent wines and one of my favorite human beings in the wine industry, Tom Rinaldi, sitting right next to me. I'm at Tom's house here in none other than St. Helena, California. You guys might know that. It's pretty much one of the big towns in Napa Valley. And Tom and I have been really great friends for a long time, like 30 plus years. I met him originally when I got into the wine industry. He was already the winemaker at a small brand that you guys might know called Duckhorn. And we just happen to have some big bottles here of Duckhorn. We will not be drinking them right now, even though I did try to persuade Tom to open them. But this one's actually for his daughter's, it's when she was born this year. This is the birth year of 1990. So I probably met Tom about 93, 94. How long had you been at Duckhorn as the winemaker there?
Well, I started in 1978, and thank goodness it was 1978 because 1977, 1976, and 1979 were very challenging vintages. 1978 was flawless. So we came out with 900 cases of Merlot. What the heck is that?
Yeah, no one can pronounce it. Yeah,
Merlot. And then we came out with the Cabernet Sauvignon, $11.50 for the Cabernet, even though it was from Spotswood and Howell Mountains, beautiful vineyards. But the Three Palms Merlot, $12.50.
Whoa, that was spendy back then.
Yeah.
And this was a time when wine wasn't that popular, but it was changing because of the 1976 Paris tasting, which is also exactly our anniversary this year, 50 years. But it's also the 50-year anniversary of Duckhorn wines. And Dan Duckhorn, I mean, you pretty much rode into town on your bicycle and motorcycle. So, but he does ride a bicycle all the time. He hired you, and how you worked, what, 30 years for him?
22 vintages.
22 vintages for him. And, this was a time period when Merlot was starting to go like this, and boom, and it just blew up all over the place. But you happen to have a very small vineyard here. Really, you didn't have the big winery or anything, but you got some really good contact with one of the greatest sites in America, which is the Three Palms. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was, thank goodness for the winemaker. There was a mentor, Rick Foreman. That's an R-I-C, no K.
Yeah.
But Rick was the winemaker at Sterling and convinced us to get this fruit, and we're like, Merlot, kind of scratching our heads. I know it's popular over in France, but California Merlot, kind of a thing. And so we got talked into it, and lo and behold, it was a flawless vintage. And basically the rest became history.
Yeah. Merlot is a very different grape than Cabernet. Cabernet takes time to really ripen, and it really needs to be a little bit more sheltered. Merlot, like in France in the right bank, it gets wind in the late afternoons, and that's actually stopping it from ripening too fast because it's actually a very fast ripening grape.
It is, and especially an area like Calistoga.
Yeah.
There were so many years where it might be raining at the latter part of the harvest, especially 1979, our second vintage at Duckhorn. We didn't make a Cabernet that year. We just had Merlot because we got it in so early that whatever Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon that we had would become part of the blend.
Yeah.
And that was when it became a 25% addition that you could add to the rest of the wine. Before that, in the early days, it would have been 51% of the varietal in order to call it Merlot or whatever the varietal was.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just people felt Cab was kind of risky and started going more with Merlot. And then, as we know, the market got taken over by Merlot. It actually set the record for the most acres planted within a 10-year period of any varietal ever in California history, there from the late 80s into the 90s. And, some of that stuff became like commodity wines. Yeah. And there was just too much stuff that was the same out there. These people didn't understand that slowing the process down versus speeding it up is a better thing to do. You made some of the greatest Merlots of California history. There's no doubt about that. And the Cabernets as well.
The key is the soil. The soil has to be very well drained. Sauvignon Blanc, I mean, they don't care. But for Merlot, if they have wet feet during the growing season, or even as the growing season, then you're in trouble. They're going to be boring, and just not worth the time.
No.
No matter how good a winemaker you think you might be, it's not worth it.
Well, I got to go with some other great journalists from the old days, and we got to sit down and taste through some of the Duckhorn, like the portfolio through the library wines, and really going back through some of the stuff that you made was just genius. The 1980s, I think it was 1986, and some of those early 2000s that you made were so good. The 90s were very good, and that's when Merlot was very big. But a lot of these brands that got into Merlot pulled it out. I mean, these vineyards are gone. They're growing Pinot there, or they're growing Cab there because they put it in the wrong place. This is a brand, Duckhorn, and we just want to give honor to Dan Duckhorn, who died this past week. And who hired you? It was a smart man to hire this guy. And for the things that you guys did to put Merlot on the map, but that brand still makes great wines, and especially the Merlots that are out there. You buy a Duckhorn Merlot, it's because of what you set up for them. You built the foundation with Dan about how Merlot can be if you have it in the right place, in the right slot. So speaking of which, when you left there, you went to Provenance and you did some other projects, and then you started the Patent Wines with my great friend Eric, who's also right behind us here. So this is the Sauvignon Blanc from Patent Wines, and tell us a little bit about Patent and how it kind of came to be with you and Eric.
Well, we initially had another brand that we called Double Plus. That was.
I still have my hat from that.
Yeah, me too. That's all I have left. But we got into trouble because that's the term that I use for the high-end Hewitt. Initially, I wanted to call it Ambassador because William A. Hewitt was the last family member to run John Deere Tractor as president and CEO. And he also, when he retired, he made a rule when you get to 63, you're going to retire. And when he hit that age, he just reluctantly left. But he became ambassador to Jamaica. Thank you, Ronald Reagan.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be honoring Bill Hewitt because that was the high-end brand that I left Duckhorn for.
Yeah.
And got to name it Hewitt after
Great vineyard,
William
too.
Hewitt. Wonderful vineyard.
One of the best. Really, not enough people know about it, but if you're in the wine industry, you know the Hewitt Vineyard. You definitely do. It's one of the best of Napa Valley. There's no doubt about it.
And those grapes always went to BV's Private Reserve, and
Right.
for good reason.
Yep.
It was just a spectacular one. And my first vintage was when I left Duckhorn. Anything with a 19 before the number, I made. But anything with a 20, that was not.
Yeah, you were moving out of that. Yeah.
That was not my footprint.
Right, right.
So,
but you set the foundation there, and that's a really important thing. And it's really about getting that flagship wine and really establishing that and building out. And Duckhorn, to Dan and his family's credit, I mean, they didn't just build out from that with the Duckhorn label. They started Decoy. They started Paradox, probably the first real proprietary blend winery of California's history, and Goldeneye when they got on the Pinot thing, and Migration as well. So really great brands that are at all different price points, but they still, that Merlot market is still really, it's a perfect thing that you always can rely on Duckhorn, thanks to you and your skills. But this is a great Sauvignon Blanc. So tell me a little bit about this and the Patent, your style with Patent.
Well, the lovely part about this century is that essentially everything that I brought in is a field blend. So you don't have to see, let's see how 20% works. Let's try 15%. No, with the addition of Semillon and Muscat, it's right there in the vineyard. It's a no-brainer to me that we just have to figure the right day in which to pick. But you pick all that fruit at the same time, and away we go.
Wow.
So it's a wonderful aspect. Yeah. And the other one is the quality of French oak, especially the center part of France, toasted just to our specifications, we could do a fermentation with those barrels that give us very special flavor. So it's a wine that I always thought that it's just for fun, not it was something you take seriously. But nowadays, I'd say if you ever had a Gewürztraminer, that's just for fun and game. But Sauvignon Blancs, they can be serious wines, if you will. They're priced accordingly too.
People will pay more money for Sauvignon Blanc than they will for Chardonnay. It's just it's always the highest of the status for the price points per person that purchases out there. They're willing to spend more money for this. This is this area when I was a kid was a bunch of fruit trees and cattle and stuff like that, and it started to change.
And
walnuts. When you and I were here in the 70s, I just drive through here with my mom and her friends going to the maybe 8 wineries that were in existence then, and it was not what Napa is today. And a lot of this Sauvignon Blanc is planted right in the middle of it, just because that's where those old orchards were. Yeah. And it's deep soils, it's really rich, and these things do great. But this one to me tastes more like a Bordeaux Blanc, and it's got the Semillon in it. But you've got a lot of Napa people that use just Semillon. I like the Muscat part of it.
Yeah.
And how old are these?
The magic bullet.
Yeah, the magic bullet.
And these are well-established vineyards, but that's not the critical part. The funniest thing was that Dan Duckhorn in the early days was saying, we got to make a white wine. And I said, ABC.
Anything but Chardonnay.
Yeah.
I know that term very well.
So we ended up with Sauvignon Blanc, and we added the Semillon and the Muscat to it to enhance it. The interesting part was that was 1982, which was a very difficult, challenging vintage. By 1983, things were rock and roll time. Yeah. It was a gorgeous vintage. By then, I had gone to France and talked about, well, Sauvignon Blanc, you have to drink those young.
Yeah.
Tut, tut, tut. They asked me, how old are you? And I told them I was born in 1949. They go to the cellar and bring out a 1948. Yeah. And to me, it still had this fragrance of grapes and fruit. And it had a delightful acidity, nothing volatile like vinegar. Yep. And then the next time, smelling it, there was nothing there, So I said it's like some people in my youth that used to get that white powder and, it would just disappear all of a sudden, and they were happy that it's gone, but that's what happened with that aromatic of a at that time, it was about a 35-year-old bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah. But
wow,
surprisingly ageable.
I have been so impressed by tasting older Sauvignon Blancs. They really are great, and it's really the acidity. You can go out there and really, this so well. You go out there and you're tasting them as they're developing out there in the vine. You go like this. It's the most aromatic, dreamy thing that you've ever smelled in here. It's ethereal, and you're like, oh, can we just bottle this now? But it's not ready yet. Then when you pick it when it's got good high acidity, and that's what's going to make it also not be cloying or anything, but it's going to be razor acidity, amazing levels of like complex flavors that are coming out all over the place, especially when you throw in a little bit of Semillon Muscat in there. And I think that's a really interesting thing that you guys did with Duckhorn, and that you're really doing it with this wine as well.
My first year we made 100% Sauvignon Blanc, and it was 100% nightmare. It was 100% barrel fermented. And
oh, God.
Fortunately, it just sort of came and went.
Yeah.
And by 1983, at rock and roll time, and from then on, we haven't looked back.
Yeah, it's like you usually just clone one, and now you're starting to get Muscat in there, and it's really interesting. There's more diversity out there, but I love this wine. This is great. So this is the white wine for the brand, and we've got to talk about rosé because right now it's getting sunny out there in this year. We're starting spring a little early here. How's
That's my summer wine, I call it.
Yeah, so this is the Great Rosé from Patton Wines, and this is from Oak Knoll AVA. So
it's all Cabernet.
Yeah, all Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cabernet comes in different forms, you guys. Remember, the mother or the genetic mother of Cabernet Sauvignon is Sauvignon Blanc, which also grows well down there, and obviously Cabernet Franc being the father figure. But here we have Cabernet Sauvignon in pink form. You know, this is great, and you don't see this out there in the market enough. You know, this is what got you started making this wine?
It was a gentleman, his name, believe it or not, was Paolo Rosetto. And he was telling me, no, you cannot do this, you must do this. You know, that we must draw some juice from this wine that we had. It was a Merlot and a Cabernet blend, but we had to draw the juice in order to concentrate the skins that were left behind.
Yeah.
And I had said, okay, fine, and just pour it down the drain.
Yeah.
300 gallons from this tank. And they go, no. And he talked us into making a wine from these basically leftover juice.
Wow.
And it was so delightful.
Well,
I wanted to call it Rosetto. He's from Italy. He was an intern.
you could have sold it to all the Italian restaurants
There.
right here. Yeah.
I brought him a bottle when I went on a bicycle tour of Italy, and had the whole family and everything there. It was incredible too. I wanted to call it Rosetto, but by then we had gotten taken over by a BAC, I call them Big Ass Corporation,
Yeah.
and would not let us use that. We had to just call it Rosé. You know?
This is a fabulous wine, you guys. It just has such flavor and it's got depth, but it's so silky and sexy. It's got great mouthfeel. You know, Cabernet Sauvignon being made into a pink form is really, really unique. There's only one that I can think of, and it was actually Heidi Barrett, one of our great friends, who actually did it to save a wine that she had up on the mountain there that when the fires came, she just tried to save it and take the fruit from the cab grapes and just press it immediately so it had no skin contact. Yeah. And then she actually brought some Petit Bordeaux to color it later. Yeah. So interestingly done. But this is a different way of doing it. And I just love it. And it makes me want like really good fish dishes. Paella with this would be ridiculous. Yeah. But, you know, it just makes you feel special tasting it, you know? Especially a patio. Not a patio pounder, but a porch enjoyer. You know, and we are on your porch right now, right here in St. Helena.
And surprisingly, I'm not wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
I wore this shirt just because he usually wears Hawaiian shirts. I mean, it's almost
always shorts anyway. That's
it's just
unless it's a wedding or a funeral.
Yeah, like my great friend John Lasseter, who always wears his old Pixar shirts. I always have the emblems of all the cartoon characters that he created. Go. But this man and Hawaiian shirts, he's got the greatest collection ever, you guys. And you look good even though you're not wearing that right now. Let's
call it men's lingerie.
Yeah. Definitely. So we're building up to the final one right now, you guys, and need to get this tasted. When we're talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, we got to taste some Cabernet Sauvignon. So tell us a little bit about this. This is the new vintage that's out there in the marketplace right now. This is the 2022 from Oak Knoll, sorry. Oak Knoll is just so interesting because of the nice acidity that you can get there from the, you know, it takes a little bit longer for it to ripen there, but that's a good thing.
I agree. So it's a wide area of the valley, so it's a high quality sunlight, but that includes the morning, early morning sunlight, not all afternoon like some vineyards have.
Here we go. All right. So this is definitely that kind of Bordeaux style. I've really enjoyed this. It's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is because I was so impressed by this 2022 vintage of yours. Just like the nose on this is so good. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in here, you guys. It's big, but it's just like so pretty. It's like you just picked the grapes and you can smell the skins and they're just like, it's so fresh, you know, for being a young wine. It's very, very fresh. What was your oak program on this?
Well, it's in the neighborhood of 35% new, and the rest of it's all French oak.
Yeah.
But the rest of it's 1 year and 2 year, or Sauvignon Blanc barrels that we've utilized and then put into the blend. So it's kind of fun to watch them because we do some barrel fermentation. And that's, oh boy, that's some fun.
Yeah.
You got to punch down the cap, and it's very small lots. You know, it's only a 60-gallon drum. and the head is popped off, and so you're not filling it up with 60 gallons because it's got the skins, which
Yep.
take up a fair amount of the
Yeah.
volume, and then the liquid underneath that you're trying to colorize
Yeah.
and then pick up that characteristic of the wood. But it's all part of the art, if you will, of making something that's going to outlive me or outlive us.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, I mean,
Yeah.
if they're kept in ideal conditions.
Yeah.
Which is another thing interesting is that the Sauvignon Blanc and the Rosé, we didn't get them out of a refrigerator. We got them out of my cellar here at 58 degrees.
Yeah.
And they've been sitting for a little bit of time too. So that's a different game altogether. Some people prefer them. I mean,
Really
hopefully not a
cold, yeah.
red wine that you got
Yeah.
in a refrigerator,
Yeah.
but certainly for the Sauvignon Blanc and the Semillon, it's an ideal environment in which to keep those wines once you pop the cork.
I agree 100% with Tom, and I'll just say this: when you pull it out of a cellar, a white wine like the Sauvignon Blanc and the Rosé we were just talking about, they're the same as if you put them in too much ice and they get really cold. You're probably going to drink that wine before it really opens up. When you get it at this temperature, it continues to open up. And that's where it gets more beautiful as you go along. And so you go through course one, or maybe you're just reception, and now you're doing, this amazing Sauvignon Blanc with a soup. They're a split pea soup or something like that that's chilled during the springtime, which is coming. And you're getting your paella after that. So then you've got your rosé ready. Then you're gonna do a little bit of something. You're gonna have lamb after that, and you're gonna have this wine with lamb. Am I making you hungry? I hope so. I'm making Tom hungry, that's for sure. But
I'm doing beer can chicken tonight, so
Nice.
not quite. It takes a lot of good beer to make a great wine.
Yeah,
I'll
but
say that much.
and also probably a perfect pairing with your Merlots that you've made. Beer can chicken, you guys. Have you made it yet? You should.
Yeah.
You should release your recipe for that. Maybe on the website.
Well, the idea is,
PatentWines.com.
It doesn't matter what beer it is. I prefer Japanese beer, but it doesn't matter. Asahi.
Sapporo or
Yeah,
Asahi.
Sapporo.
Yep.
Yeah,
Those are solid beers. I mean, it's like me with Bohemia from Mexico. If they don't have Bohemia on the list at a Mexican restaurant, I won't go back. I basically won't go back.
Crucial.
Yeah, that's crucial.
But the other thing is that it's heating the beer up in the cavity of the chicken. It's sitting upright, and it's on a barbecue, indirect heat, but it's moisturizing with a very special flavor, that chicken, and you're going to get it till it's nice and brown on the outside and just delightful. Just a delightful flavor.
I love it. I love it.
Me
This
too.
is a beautiful wine. It really does have silky tannins. It stretches out where you're just like you feel the luxury of it, and it's just a beautiful. Tell us a little bit about the vineyard and its spot and why you chose that.
Well, it was our vineyard manager. He and I have been pals, if you will, for decades, and he's my go-to guy. And this is part of his family's vineyard, and it's very well drained, beautifully situated for the highest amount of sunlight, but in a way that it doesn't really crank up the temperatures. So this is surprising because I always want to add Merlot or Cabernet Franc or Petit Verdot, something else to the blend of Cabernet. But this 100% by itself is just fine and dandy.
One of the things too about that area is it's a little bit more similar to Bordeaux. I mean, think about Bordeaux. It's right next to the ocean. I mean, the Cabernet is planted closer to the ocean than the Merlot is. And it's because they have the largest sand dune in all of Europe that's blocking it. So it's there, but it gets, it takes time to develop those flavors. Complexity doesn't come fast. It comes slow. And I think that's one of the great things. You're closer to San Pablo Bay than a lot of the rest of this area, especially where we're right now in St. Helena. It takes a lot longer for this to cool down than it does there. And that's really what Bordeaux was made out of, and why, we don't usually, we are all so into the fighting varietals and putting Cabernet on there. Whereas in Bordeaux, it's always a blend, you know, and it's because that's what they've had to do with. We have really good heat here. If you haven't been to Napa lately, it's never going to change as far as its heat. It's warm. You know, in Calistoga, that's right behind us, it's real hot. You know, but it also gets the most rain each year of all the places. So there's things that are variable here, but Oak Knoll is an unsung area that's amazing. This is a great wine.
The cool part that literally, if you will, that during the growing season, especially August and July, is that we get a morning fog that burns off. So we get cool to cold nights, relatively speaking, compared to the relatively warmer to hot days. And that's a key. That's the key to the development of the fruit and the development of the flavors. We really admire that having that fog come in. It's a treat.
It's a real special thing. You know, one of our great friends, you know, who's the owner of Dominus, Christian, he's an amazing human being. You know, what shocked me one time when I was there, and they're right in Yountville, so very close to this vineyard. I mean, a few miles maybe, but he pulled out his Merlot there when I was there, and his family owns Petrus. You know, like in one of the greatest Merlot families of the world. There's no doubt about it. But it just didn't work there for him. But Cabernet did, and it's just because of it. Really is about the site, and I feel like this is an amazing site for Cabernet.
It truly is.
It really is, and this is actually more kind of going back to the styles of the before the late '80s, where you really had kind of lower alcohol, but like lots of fruit in there and really natural acidity that you can go back and taste those Louis Martinis from '74, and they're still alive, you know, and the amazing stuff from Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, that 72 that I got to taste that won the Paris tasting, it stopped me in my tracks. It tasted young, because these kinds of the things, the whole part about ramping it up and going higher in alcohol, you know what? I think we've gone back to the original styles, like more of the 80s styles. And you know what? We just happen to have better equipment, better barrels. We have everything that we can do that, but make better wines. And I think this is a great example.
To all great wines is balance, and that you are using aspects that have the potential of being a way too much or way too little, but you end up making a balance of the flavors, of the aromas, of the acidity, of all the characteristics of a great wine. And that's the key to blending, and the key to areas of the vineyard with different clones and so forth. It's very complex, I'll say that much. And I've only been at it for 50 vintages so far. So,
only 50 vintages.
Yeah.
That's a 5-0, you guys, not 15. Yeah. So once again, these are the Patent Wines. This is an amazing website too, patentwines.com. I'm really a big fan of his. And just for Dan Duckhorn, we wanted to give a little salute to Dan Duckhorn, who just passed away. Amazing man, made a huge career for this man, made me a huge lover of Merlot and so many things that he's done, that he did and his family has done. Just a great contributor to the success of American wines, you know. And for this man who worked for 22 years putting this brand on the map, this is what it says on the back. Back of this wine is the vintner, and back through the years, his skill. And back it all are the vines and the sun and the rain and the master's will. That's a anonymous, it's not quoted by anyone, but at the bottom it says, Tom, thanks for 22 great vintages. So this was a bottle given to Tom by the family, from the Duckhorn family, for his accomplishments there. And you know what? He deserves it, and now he's got the Patent Wines, and you need to check them out. So thanks once again for having me, Tom.
Cheers.
This is amazing.
All
Always
right.
good having fine wines with this man. Cheers, you guys. The Varietal Show will be back soon. Cheers.
Do you do it?